Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we got the Giant Mouse Ace Clyde here. Now, this does come in many other options. There's lots of different versions of this with different handle materials. And, you know, I don't want anybody who has this and loves this knife, don't take what I'm going to say too harshly. Okay, I just want to put that little disclaimer out there. But this thing does not make sense, and it has some issues, in my opinion. Let's go over them. First off, let me just talk about, it's in Lmax Steel. This one has the green micarta, and I think the micarta is extremely, extremely well done. I think this is a good quality micarta. I think Giant Mouse uses some of the best micarta out there. The back spacer, I like the pop of color. It looks really good. And they're using Lmax Steel on this Persian blade. What is a Persian blade for? Persian blades are basically for, obviously for EDC, we use them for a lot of different things, but originally they're for like skinning, for fishing and stuff like that, because it has basically all belly, for slicing. So you're not using the tip very much. It has a lot of belly, for skinning and things, filleting fish. And obviously you can use them for a lot of different reasons. And this one's not like a crazy Persian. The tip doesn't go up like really high or anything. It's just barely over the spine, but it does go up just a little bit higher right at the tip. Now, the ergos with this thing, it is thin and compact. This is a very lightweight EDC knife. The one side does not have any liners. It's just micarta. And then the other side has the lock bar. I can flex it a little bit, but the flexing comes from this side with the lock bar because they had to cut it out to put the liner in. Not really a big deal or anything. The ergos, it's not going to be the most comfortable. It's a lightweight EDC. It's mostly going to be used for just lightweight cutting, things like that. And it does have this little taper right there that does kind of fit your palm a little bit, and it's okay. It's relatively comfortable. Now, cutting with it, 25 thousandths behind the edge. The blade stock thickness isn't very thick at 120 thousandths, I believe, but behind the edge thickness is pretty thick, especially for a light duty EDC. Now the taper from the spine, it's not a full flat. It is more of a saber grind, so it doesn't have very far to drop, so that's why it's pretty thick behind the edge. So cutting with it, it cuts. It does work. I'm not trying to make it seem like it doesn't cut, because it does. Obviously, it cuts. It is a knife. But for a lightweight EDC, it's more of a harder use blade. The grind, at least. And so pushing it through materials, I didn't get any recording of it while I was at work, but I did use it at work, and I struggled with it a bit at work. Now, just cutting some lightweight boxes I have around the house, it wasn't bad. It did cut just fine. I did find that if I was cutting through tape or anything like that, it did take a little bit more effort to push through. And all in all, it wasn't really too bad. As of right now with the factory edge still. Now, utility cuts, it's, for a Persian blade, it was actually relatively good because the Persian doesn't go up really high, so it doesn't take too much lift to get to the tip. Some Persians are they're almost backwards, where you have to go like this to get to the tip. So it's not too bad for utility cuts, and since it is shorter, it's not a really big knife, it's not bad, and you can get your finger up behind there for precision, work, and it worked. Now, I did notice this little corner right here poking me in the hand when I was pushing down into material, so you're not going to get a crazy amount of leverage with this poking into your hand, especially through dense materials, but just for regular light stuff, tape and opening packages, it'll be just fine. Now, the deployment, it is just the one thumb stud. So it is only a thumb flicking knife or a slow rolling knife, which is fairly satisfying. It's not on bearings, it is on washers. and it does have a tight feel to it, but it's very smooth on the slow roll. Very smooth. The thumb flick is okay. Now, if you were a lefty, you would only be able to reverse flick it, which you can do probably better than I can, but yeah, it's only a one-sided thumb stud, and you can only leave it on one side, even though you can remove it. Now, the clip works great. You know, I love these kind of clips. It's not reversible because it's only a right-handed knife, or, you know, it's only supposed to be. And these wire clips work fantastic, so awesome for that. Hardware, T6s, don't like that. Wish they were T8s, but whatever, it's a light duty. Now, let me get into my negative things of what's wrong with this. So there's a few issues I have. One, look at this plunge grind. They did not give you a choice. It's literally, look at this. They couldn't even sharpen it back here. See that? They didn't even sharpen it back here because they can't. Because it hits the plunge grind so much. You can see the plunge grind goes all the way up to like right here. You know, technically you could probably sharpen it back to here and get away with it before it hits the plunge grind. But, you know, you can see where the plunge grind goes. You can see the taper. It starts here and it ends about right there. So that's crazy to me. Next thing, like I said, it's 25 thousandths behind the edge, with the factory edge not being even sharpened yet. Now, since the taper is the way it is with the grind, sharpening it, it's only going to get thicker and dramatically thicker. So after a couple edges, it's going to be pretty thick behind the edge. It's going to start getting ridiculous. Another thing, the grind is, look at how off this grind is. The tip, I'm you know, the tip is supposed to be, you know, thicker or thinner, whatever. That's not a big deal that it's different here. But as we trail down it and watch it all the way back to here, look at how tiny it gets right there. Because the edge thickness changes so dramatically back here. So the grind is off from the heel up to the tip. Not a massive deal, but, you know, it would have been easier if they just, you know, put a big choil in or change the plunge grind to make it work better, especially for a lightweight EDC. Now, the next thing. Okay, so this is not a front flipper. I can technically front flip it though if I really try, but it's not a front flipper. But the jimping is way back here, right? Like this is not, I mean, I hold it like this. Even if I hold it all the way back here, my thumb is still past the jimping. So the jimping, and it's not really doing anything. I don't understand even why it's there. Whatever. That's not even another big deal. Who cares? The lock, it does have lock rock. I'm barely doing it right now because I don't want it to fail, but you can see it moving. Even with my finger, I can make that lock move. Now, one of the reasons why is because look at the lock face. Look at the lock geometry. It's horrible. Not only is it horrible, but look at how little of a lock face you have. It's so tiny. That little tiny piece right here is all you have to lock up on. Just this little tiny piece of metal right there. That's the whole entire lock face. So, since it's so tiny, it doesn't have a lot of connection between the lock bar and the lock face. So, since it doesn't have that much, you're not going to have a lot of metal touching metal. Now, the stop pin, small stop pin, very tiny stop, or not tiny, but it's not big, it's not average, it's a little under average, it's small, but it is a lightweight EDC. So all of that makes sense. All of that makes sense for a lightweight knife, right? A lightweight EDC knife. So why the heck is it 25 thousandths behind the edge? If this is, and then this is the next thing, Lmax Steel. We have Lmax Steel. Why are we using Lmax Steel? I don't mind the Lmax Steel. Amazing edge retention. It's a tough steel, right? There's a lot of great things about Lmax. I like Lmax. However, it's a tough steel. Seeing that it's a tough steel, that means that it could have withstood being ground thin. And that's a subject I'm going to talk about in one of my lives coming up. But a tough steel like this should be able to be ground thinner, especially for a lightweight EDC knife. Now, it's going to take more effort than what this handle can take to push it through materials. And now after sharpening it, now granted, you can lay back the edge a little bit and it'll make it cut a little bit better. But the more you sharpen it, the more it's just going to get thicker and thicker. So the harder it's going to be to pass through materials. You know, like I said, you can lay back the edge, which will make it cut a little bit better. But my point is, it doesn't make sense. The whole knife to me doesn't make sense. I like Giant Mouse. I just don't get why they put this blade this thick on top of this light duty lock face, light duty lockup, light duty stop pin, and then this choil. I mean, you guys already know how I feel about that choil, but why? Why not thin it out and make it like it's supposed to be? And it's a Persian blade. A Persian blade. A Persian blade is like for skinning and things. So it's supposed to be slicey. I'm not saying you're not going to find thick Persians out there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying for the most part, Persians are supposed to be extremely slicey. You see them on, like I said, fillet knives and stuff. So for this knife to be, I mean, it's a lightweight EDC, so it just doesn't make sense to have a hard use grind on this. Now, Lmax has great edge retention, so you're going to get good, well, hopefully you're going to get good edge retention out of it. I honed it and just stropped it back after using it. I didn't sharpen it. It's still pretty good. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And, you know, just how lightweight it is, yet they, you know, this lightweight handle with this heavy, hard use blade and grind. Like, to push this through materials, you're putting so much stress on the stop pin and, you know, on the lock bar, you know, if you have to yank it out because it just won't pass through, sometimes you have to do that. And then also the force you're pushing onto the spine of the blade as you're trying to push it through stuff. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they did that. But, you know, it's built fairly well. The action, if you like slow rolling action, it's pretty good. I mean, it's the exact opposite of a drop shutty knife. I mean, I can slap it shut if I really get some momentum. And it flies out pretty good with the thumb action. And it looks good. It is a good looking knife. I do like the way it looks. But yeah, there's just so many little details that just doesn't make sense to me on this price of a knife. I think it's $150, and I think there's some that are more expensive, just depending. But at $150, what are we talking? I mean, I understand Lmax is expensive. I understand that part. But at least grind it correctly then. I mean, there's very little materials here. I don't see the money. And even if I did see the money, right? Even if I said, okay, the Lmax is expensive for them to grind it. It is an Italian-made knife. It's not a Chinese-made knife. It's an Italian-made knife. The micarta is good quality. They used aluminum. It's just, why not at least make it how it should be? I don't know. But that's all I really have to say. The lock face, I don't think there's much you can do to it. You can possibly bend the lock bar a little bit to where it locks up a little bit more solid, but I don't think it'll work. Looking at the geometry of the lock face, I don't think you're going to get much out of that. I think it'll always have a little bit of lock slip because it's such a lightweight lock face. But there you guys go. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.